Hey, how are we all? Thanks for joining. I know you've probably been waiting for me to come on live. Hopefully you can see me. And I know it's taken just a good 20 minutes, if not longer, to get going. But here we are. Nevertheless, we make it no matter what. So it's one of the first time I've actually done a live ever, I think, actually. So hopefully you can hear me. Let's have a look. If you can hear me, fantastic. Let's see how many people are here. I'm going to wait for this to jump up a little bit. And as we go live, we'll go from there. I'm going to discuss a couple of things today. We're going to discuss, let's have a look. We're going to be talking majority about remedies, what we've been doing that's successfully been working, what I've been finding is happening within this community, whatever you want to call it, in terms of a movement. Some would like to class it as a truth movement. I've heard that a lot go around. And others actually call it the abiding by the law. Because let's be truthful here, we are in a state of time where there's just there are outlaws running everything. And those outlaws are currently being challenged as to the state of affairs and what it is that they're doing. So I'm not going to make this boring. I'm not going to hold a bottle of beer. I'm not going to swear and rant and tell you to send things back. No, not at all. I'm going to give you some actual education, a little bit of knowledge, and then showcase some of the stuff that we've been up to. I'm really excited about this because, of course, it's been some time. I know that there are a few of you that probably been following for a little bit, waiting for us to do some a few bits, one or two of you anyway. Let's have a look. If you're already here, if you could just put your hand up into the chat, let's have a quick look. Okay then. Here we go. So yeah, so a lot of people have been talking about trusts, and I've noticed that since we opened up communications about the trust that we actually do here in iRise for people, generally as a service, but ultimately as a way of remedy by finding out exactly how things operate. One thing that you will find is that no matter what, everything is in trust. So from the moment that we were born, we were actually birthed in the legal term, and with those languages that were used that we don't know, we recognize now that the birthing instruments that we're given, the certificates, those papers, it's a very old story for those who are already part and parcel of this whole movement, but that has been sold, okay, and used as a security against your name, okay, and the name that is written on there is now used as a representation, okay, of an entity that they classed as having passed away. Now this dates many years back, and I've got many other times where I'll go into that whole drama about the lack of knowledge of the extra parts whenever a baby is born. Of course, there's the placenta, and obviously they didn't understand all of that. And then there was the whole thing of it still having a heartbeat and beating. And of course, when they did all that, they had to sort of say, look, this other entity that was attached to the baby, this demonic thing, was dead. And of course, they gave it a burial and everything. Now, of course, that was created as an estate, and that estate has actually been funded, okay, in order And only in the later times was that funded to create a debt against us that could be leveraged. And so we were then made and termed, if you like, as chattel, slaves, usury, okay, used for usury. And that's where this whole movement has stemmed from, because of course, the more people that have realized it, the more people that know about it, of course, we have actually found that instead of being in a position whereby we didn't know, what was going on and why we couldn't find, remedy in this world or justice, because that's how I've stumbled upon it, was from looking at that and finding out essentially, well, what works then? What does apply in true life in terms of how we're living? And one thing that you'll find is that for every man or woman out there who has discovered this pathway, there's one thing that is essentially common amongst us all. We found that there was something that wasn't working, and that is living a life that goes with exactly what we're told to do. And essentially, that's after actually giving it a go. And you know what happens, don't you? You find out it doesn't work, you have to find another way around to fix it, or you give up. So for those that gave up, they give up life, or they end up in a system where they're incarcerated and they can't do anything about it. And of course, these remedies that we ended up coming up with were remedies that, of course, have been copied and regurgitated to a point where those running away from one system end up running into the hands of another group of people who are trying to persuade you into different things. Now, of course, you'll find that from those who were demonstrating for equal pay as nurses, for those that were demonstrating, there were truckers in Canada, for those that were demonstrating here again in the UK, just as postal workers. Many of these individuals were looking for a remedy, but think that protesting was the way. In Canada, they actually came across a man, I think it was Mark Kishon, who was saying, look, you guys need to formulate a way for you guys to create your own governance. And what actually happened was, for those that actually managed to do that, it was really, really simple. What would happen was, all you do, hold on, let's see. Someone's saying they can't get in. Let's have a look. I'll let you in. Don't you worry about it. It's not hard. You can get in here. Right. Jump on. Just click that little link. All you have to do is click the link. So if I press that, that's going to open up YouTube now. And I'm going to have 2 pages of the live while it's on. Waiting. Oh no. That's not good. That's not what I want. Let's have a look. Let me copy this and put it back into the group, because of course I don't want you guys to miss out, but it's all right. There we go. So as I was saying, now for those that were looking for remedy, whether they were, even nurses were protesting recently. The thing about the word protest, what you find about the word in itself, of itself, is that, let's have a quick look, all right? When you look at the word protest, what do you find about it? Yeah? Protest is a public expression of an objection, okay? It's disapproval, it's dissent towards an idea or an action, typically a political one. Now, protest can be thought of as an act of cooperation in which numerous people cooperate by attending and share the potential costs and risk of doing so. All right. Now, the thing about this is it's an attempt to influence a public opinion, all right, or government policy. However, where people try to undertake
a direct action in attempting to change that political stance or that systematic legislation that's come through. Well, what you tend to find is you can't, or you will not, you will find it difficult to actually, three of you have joined, brilliant. So you will find it very difficult to actually get to the remedy of the solution. So being out there, thousands of people protesting, it's just not going to find you any remedy at all. And the thing about that, what aches my heart, really, because is there are lots of things that are unjust. There are things that are out there that are unjust that we all want remedy to, but you will not find it by chanting to what is already there. And here is the key. Of course, I've talked about language. I'm not going to go too far into that, but language is key. It's one of the things we teach in the academy about language and how we need to see it as being quite deceptive, especially when we're talking about the, the way in which English is made up of over 200 different category of languages itself. And so it mixes up, even one word like mortgage is mixed up of not just English, but also Latin. And so when you put the word together, you don't even know what you're saying. The word doesn't mean what you think it means. It means a completely different thing altogether. And it's the same thing here, because even with protesting, what you find is you're not necessarily, doing anything of good value. Yes, it's showing on the stage that people are not happy, but the way in which they're aiming to get that change is never going to be through even petitioning, because ultimately what you're doing is you're giving yourself over to that system and saying, hey, you have control over me. Just like in an argument, you're giving control to the other person or whoever is involved in that argument with you, and you're giving them that control. And it's the same thing. And so what you actually need to do is find a way to write, because the pen is always going to be mightier than the sword. You will not find me writing in black either, but you will always find me writing in blue. And that's for a story of another day, with regards to commerce and so many different things with colors. So my point here is the remedies that I'm going to talk about here are ones that work. Why? Because they're not stipulated on just common law. Common law, well better known as contract law, is a very important part of understanding or understanding something that you need to comprehend to be able to put your point across clearly, to get justice, to get that remedy, to ensure that you're not usurped, where you've tried to live by the fine line and do the right thing. So what I've been finding is in everything that I'm putting together at the minute, we've been using so much of the remedies that have been taught. Now, I'm not one to brag and boast and say I know it all, at the first anyway. I'm not like that now, but I'm still quite a student in life, in everything. I learn from everywhere and everyone, and as much as I can get to understand that in a very honest way, without any hidden agendas. I'm happy to pay for a course to learn something. Now, my point is, I've learned from people, there are people like Observation Deck was teaching, Rob Odek was teaching some great stuff on his Deck MC course, and we did cover some essential elements of how to administrate the paperwork. And what that means is by how to deliver that paperwork in a timely manner at certain time points to hit a barrage of points across in a way that follows the civil rules of procedure. Why follow the civil rules of procedure? Well, even though I myself am not a part of the legislative, I am a part more of the judiciary, because we the people have that power. I will use that, of course, where it's very important to put across a point to those who are obligated to the legislative. Okay, so those who are obligated to the laws that come out of Parliament are the ones that I'll use that for. And of course, that helped to structure that format. Eventually, though, I pulled away because I also really wanted to add a little bit of extra flavor, knowing that I'd done a lot of political status correction. Now, status correction is a political thing because, as I was just talking about protesting, and you heard when I was describing it, it is literally a protest of public expression or objection, typically against a political idea or action. Okay. And now, of course, the only way one can get that is by understanding what your true power is. The major part of remedy that we have used has usually been the first point of highlighting language. Who is the word you referring to? Because are you, okay, when I talk about you, when you think about yourself, are you your face that is usually used to recognize you? Are you the hands which are also used as imprints to recognize you? Are you even the body alone, corporal matter, flesh only? Or do you exist inside of the body? And when you do exist inside the body, I'm pretty sure you've probably heard words inside of your mind prior to speaking. You think of things, and that imaginary sense that you have allows you to actually create ideas, a flash in your mind of thinking of an area that you haven't even been to and wanting to be there. Are these things that can keep you locked if you were cuffed and put your hands and locked away? Does that stop you from visualizing places that are miles away? No, it doesn't. And my point is that if you were just a flesh, then of course all those things could be used to identify you. And so it goes one and one, hand in hand, to say that when you're out there and you're shouting and you're saying, I want to be heard, and da 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 da, we already know those who shout, those who are angry, have already lost the argument. And so protesting isn't a display of having lost the argument. It is a direct display of no longer knowing how else to forge a preconceived, easily directed argument that can be debated or looked at and analyzed. Okay, now what you need to be able to do is write those things down. Now, how do we do that? Well, again, I think I've given a lot of way talking about legislator, but it's the Constitution itself, because the Constitution is what dictates essentially where we ourselves are the people who are the judiciary. We ourselves have got a major part to play in when it comes to administering, again, administering those that are put in places, okay, of power to do certain things. And in the old days, and I say about the old days a lot, we would never, ever go out and just protest, ever. What you would find is your great-great-grandfather or great-grandmother, they would write a letter to their MP. They would write letters challenging them on the law and knowing the laws. And what happened was, in our schools, we used to get taught a lot about civics. Okay, what is civics? These are things that allow us to know more about how to do things civilly, in a civil manner. Because when you're protesting, you are seen as human, which is another word we can look at in Black's Law and discover that it doesn't really mean what it means. Okay, and it has a huge implication as to why you're treated a certain manner. even though there were human rights, those are very important and need to be adhered to. But a lot of other international laws are broken by those that we have put into power, and yet they are still operating, those people who have broken those laws, because the Constitution hasn't been adhered to by the people themselves and used powerfully. And that's what we've been starting to do. We've been starting to look at how constitutionally we can use that to challenge those who are in the seats of power. And I want to just talk about that very, very briefly before I move on to the elements that I was talking about, the trust part of it, because it's so important when you see that the two are married together, because everything is trust at the end of the day. Yeah. And if we know that, then we also know that if trust is very important in terms of trust law, equity, again, another course I studied with Richard Answer, fantastic, really good course if you want to get on it. He does a great course. And of course, when we started doing, I started helping people with a lot of things. It turned that from all the knowledge that I accumulated, whether it was Robodex, of course, from Rob Answer, you know, it was fantastic to actually put together something that was looking at my political status, looking at how to do things administratively, looking at trust and how that protects my assets and actually sets us up in the nature that we have, you know, this foundation and nation, and also the academy. But then on top of that, we need, you know, our own personal, private, family trusts and things like that that we can execute for people. What is sad is that although I learned these things, I learned them off the back of having been in groups, as I mentioned before, that had, of course, been misleading a large number of people. And I'm talking in the thousands. So I was in a group one time that actually taught about the whole natural law, which of course is true, because canon law, which I did discuss at some point in the last few weeks with some of you personally, one-to-one, when I was going through things. And I'm happy to go through it because, again, this is another good book, okay, that goes through some of the canons, okay? And when I was actually looking at how this group maneuvered themselves, what you always found was the groups that had what I call the Judas goats. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. I'll show it to you what it means. All right, the Judas goats. They were the ones that were always narcissistic in character. They would get very angry with people. They'd be horrible, put you down. They wouldn't help you and would leave you to be in such a detriment of a position that you may even lose your property or lose things because, of course, you had begun a process or you never began a process. Now, the problem with it is, if you are somebody who isn't, of course, educated enough to know what to do, sometimes it's good to take a step back, take a deep breath, and then learn what you need to do and implement it. But if you're being guided to do it, you're going to just throw yourself in. The problem you'd find in some of these groups is they were telling people the wrong things. And I personally, I can't think as to why they would do that on purpose, but that's what was happening. So let me just share this with you just briefly, right? Because it's quite interesting, right? So these goats, okay, they're trained goats used in general animal herding. The Judas goat is trained to associate with sheep and cattle, but it leads them to a specific destination in stockyards. You know what a stockyard is? A Judas goat will lead sheep to slaughter while their own life is spared. And that's exactly what we'd find. Some of these groups were telling people really crazy things. It was saying things that you would think, well, that must make a lot of sense. I've got to definitely do that. But in the end, what you'd actually find is it didn't work. People would end up even in prison at points, and others would blindly follow. So I'm even hearing now there are masses of groups that are doing this like brain dead function of not realizing what it actually means to not respond. Now, I beg to differ just on the basis of knowledge alone, because the amount of people that have come to me looking for remedy, saying they already know what to do because they've learned it somewhere. Typically, it's not even been structured learning. It's just been a following of here are the templates and this is what to say. So they don't actually know what it is that they're sending, which is fine if someone's going to teach you it, but not fine if they're just giving it to you and you don't even know what it means at all, ever. What I say is this: learn something, okay? Because if you're not responding to things, okay, one thing I have found, which is typical of those that are coming to me from other groups, by the way, I'm not searching for these people, they're coming to me, is that they're not actually doing anything about some of the problems that they're having. They think a year has passed, 2 years has passed, and they haven't responded to anything. And what I told you before was that if there's a trust relationship between the state or all these companies that were handed contracts back in the time of devolution, where Margaret Thatcher did a lot of things, my goodness, you know, not only did Ted Heath join us into some crazy times with the, you know, European communities, which of course ended up being the EU, but so did Thatcher with her privatization, cause a lot of the problems that we're finding now for those of us who are in the quote unquote movement, whereby, you know, companies are charging excessive amounts for things that they don't actually have ownership of, be it a supply of energy, be it a supply of something, be it a levy or a tax, let alone a fine, without due process. I mean, it's crazy out here. There are outlaws all over the place dressed in uniforms, and it's about time that, you know, that remedy is sought, but not by way of protest. And that's my whole point. You can get that remedy. Protest can only happen, okay, where you have put pen to paper and actually knowingly put the correct terminologies together to actually be able to remove any assumptions made about who your person is. And I'm talking about your name being your person, because that's your person. Okay. And if you claim your person in a political status manner that we talk about, then you're able to assert the obligation that is on those that are making claims against you, for example, to remove those claims. And just simply in doing that and using constitutional law and supreme law, maxims of law, then of course, by right, the law states that those who make claims against you, as it is in the Bible, are now eligible to be made claims against them for bringing false claims against thine own self. So it's important to know and understand all of that. And more important to know that there are people out there who will tell you, just send stuff back, it don't matter. But you need to look at who it is that's telling you that. I studied media studies, and it always says you have to think about who it is that's speaking. I'm educated in terms of knowing what I'm talking about. I've studied banking and finance. I've done marketing. I've run my business for many years and not bothered with any of this until it was very obvious when I started studying mortgage advice to realize, and financial advice, to realize that actually, wow, the councils don't actually get money from us. So the money that they get from us is going into a secret budget that nobody really seems to know where that's going, but their money comes from the budget, of which if what they got from the budget was coming from us, we would be paying a lot more. But of course, then the question came as to, is it actually an obligation? Is it a law? Is there a law about it? And all these things made me realize that it's not the right thing. But then those people in the groups, as I said, that are poisoning other people's minds as to poisoning their hope for remedy, you know, they're just as treasonous. For those who are telling you to send things back are just as treasonous because it's evil. You see people who are sending things back, who have their name now used against them, whether it's on a credit mark, whether it's through courts, fake courts, whatever you want to call them, administrative venues, business centers. It doesn't matter what they are, because those people are still being, I don't want to use that word so strongly, but it is pillaging. Yeah, it is rape. It is, you know, taking off you, you know, your sweat equity. Okay. And that's not fair. But ultimately, it's because these people have decided to listen to these Judas goats that are teaching people the wrong thing. And of course, when we look at that, what we find is they get away scot-free. They haven't got a house. They're advising people of what to do when they don't even own a home. They're advising people what to do, but they have no children of their own when it comes to even teaching children. It's crazy, absolutely crazy out here. And then you have those who are offering quote unquote crazy services out here, and they ain't got actual real solutions. And so now those people come to me to fix those problems. I can't fix your problem, mate, because you went to someone else and now you're trying to tell me I need to tell you what to do to go and help that person. I can help you if you come to me to actually get some understanding of the law and the understanding of the remedies. And if you want me to fix that situation, of course, it's up to you. We do offer that service. We do offer many services, right? So I'm not here to sort of make massive pitches, because we do all of that. And on the buy, in the private, I'm not massive on the, oh, look at us, but you will see me coming out now because it's way too many people. I can't help them all because there's so many people that are undone unjustly. And that's not just by the system. And that's my entire point. For those who are saying, oh, we should all come together, we should take a look at who's coming to that table. You know, if Gumshoe's Loose and other people are saying, yeah, come to the table, great, fantastic. But who are those people that are coming to the table? And those who are banging together, look at who it is that are all banging together. So I'm just saying to you, keep a wise lookout for the things that you want to look at in those Judas goats that are giving you those kind of advices. And think about the remedy that is out there and how much you need to learn. For those that are teaching, are they teaching in a structured manner? Are they giving you things in a broken down way that is simple to and effective for you to understand what to do? Because yes, someone can give you templates, but it won't work. And the reason it won't work is because it's custom to your scenario of what you've done and what you have actually gone through. And it doesn't necessarily work. There is no one fix all. You do need to know the laws that if, for example, someone has entered your property without a warrant, you need to see what qualifies as being a warrant. What kind of people can turn up to your home and request anything, first of all, because again, in the UK, at least, there's always been the castle doctrine. Here in England, sorry, I keep saying UK, but we know that that's the corporate entity. I'm talking about England, which previous to the Act of the Union was known as the Republic, yeah, of England. Now, who can turn up to a man's castle and then question whoever is in that castle? No one. Not even the barons would do that, you know. They would have to have an appointment. And if they don't have an appointment, then of course, it's very important
for you now to to be the person who's as king asking the questions and asking the correct questions as to where they've come from, what's their certification, and have they got any kind of insurances? Because if they have insurances, you need to probably make some claims against that if anything escalates, because of course you need to know, exactly how to get remedy. Am I wrong or am I right? I'm sure you'd agree. I'm sure you'd agree that that's the right thing to do. Because of course, if you're out there and you're thinking people are going to get away with stuff, well, it beggars belief that we've got people out there doing stuff and they actually have no idea. So as I said, sticking to trust law, okay? It's so important that when you're looking at trust law, you look at the canons. Why do we look at the canons? Because we look at the canons because that's where everything began. When we talk about the Catholic Church, that's where it all began, with the birth certificate. We were never birthed, okay? We were born. Two different things altogether. One is born, one is birthed. I was born, and when I was born, okay, I was lucky. I wasn't born into one of their lading bays to be seen by a doc. I was very fortunate. And so I have an original birthing instrument, which then was used to make an entry to create the long form, which I have to now collect and go and get so I can execute certain things that allow me as a secured party to now do certain things. Now, I would recommend that if you don't know what I'm talking about here, inquire, ask the question. Don't be shy, ask the question. I'm happy to share resources. I'm happy to share information. I'm happy to share knowledge. Of course, we run a course, and yes, you can get on it. But my point is, if you want information, just join us on Telegram. In the Telegram group, there are resources in there and lots of things you can be reading in the meantime while you don't actually have everything to hand. But don't wait until you've got a problem and come to me when you have a huge problem, because the problem with that, one problem creates another problem, right? But the problem with that is that you're coming with an anticipation or an anxiousness that actually causes you more anxiety, and you're trying to spread that anxiety as a pressure on others. And what you'll find is in other groups, there'll be people that will say, yeah, we've got it here, use that. And then they won't give you any more help. You'll use it and it will end you in a serious way, because you'll think it's working and to no avail. In fact, one of the group leaders out there recently had bailiffs at their door with their child hurt as well, which shocks me, because they talk about a 3-step process and everything's a 3-step process with everyone. It's like, it's a lot more to it than that. It's a lot more to it than that. You need to start by questioning things, accepting things first, because we're people of good faith, of good hearts and good and strong minds. So we need to think first, what is it that I'm being fed by those who I'm getting information from? But you can't think when you're anxious, when you're in fear mode. In fear mode, you're not going to get very far. And so that's why I say to you, just think about that very carefully, because if you don't do that, then you are going to end up in a situation that will see you at a loss. Okay. So I advise you to read, and I advise you to ask the right kind of questions, as opposed to how to just solve something, but also to think for longer term. So I rather not give people fish, but teach them to fish. And if I can do that, I'm a lot happier, because I know that I've given somebody information for life, not just that they can pass on, but more importantly, that they are now holding on to help them hold others to account that are trespassing against them. And I'm sure you'd agree that's actually a good thing. There's nothing evil, there's nothing terrible about that. And it's quite surprising that actually a lot of the difficulty I've had to just create live streams, courses and everything else has come from within the community, because they're hating, y'all, hating.
yo, I got haters. Yo, I can't help. I got haters. But it's all good because I know I got a good thing. So what we've got coming out is incredible. I'm really, really proud of the people that have been helping me put it together. I'm proud of those that are going to be helping me implement a lot of the stuff coming up. And I wanted to do a quick showcase of it. And I did start saying a minute ago that I was going to talk a bit about trust, but I'm not going to keep that too long. All it is that we offer creating trust for people. Why is it an important thing? Well, of course, if you haven't heard already, trust, asset protection. Yeah, get a family trust. Yeah. Again, another one. We had people coming to me, and again, this week, this counts as the third person coming to me, and this made me sick. The third person coming to me saying that they went to a group to get advice on trust. Now, we offer a course on trust of how to DIY create your own trust. Okay. And I recommend other people's courses. I recommend other people's books and stuff like that. But our courses are more what I would call tangible vocational courses. So things that you will never walk away and not know how to construct an affidavit, not know how to construct notice of anyone who's trespassed against you. And that word trespass is very important because that's happening in many, many ways, just from being expected to answer questions at times in itself can be coercive, can at times have so many assumptions about you that it could be discriminatory or even counted as assault in the way that they're continual after it's past the case of being just basic harassment. So we need to be careful to understand all these little terminologies. And they're not many words. If you think about it, if you could learn probably 10 words in a week or in a month and, repetitively really go over them, eventually you'd pick up on all the really important key aspects of things that you need to know. Now, the reason our course is very tangible and hands-on is that we also do, and will be doing more often, the actual live, role play of scenarios whereby you'd use all the correct terminologies when you're speaking. And I'm really looking forward to have them back up and running. It's been since October since we stopped doing them. And I really, really enjoy it because you know what, when I do a live a role play, sometimes I've done them more often than not in one-to-ones, I'll be honest, but that was to help people to get a better strength, internal strength of knowing what it is they got to say in a situation, whether they are talking to somebody at their door, whether they're being trespassed against and they got to pick up the phone to make an assertive phone call, or to put somebody correct, even in an email, and to have the mind to know that what they've sent in email or in letter, sorry, not letter, in a notice, but in the four corner of papers, has created a court and itself is quite powerful. So that's what I help to instill, is that through the courses that we do, and they become more living in themselves, more alive, especially once they've done status correction, which we do have a primary focus on, because I know for a fact that once you do that, a lot of things start to change, especially with the credit and finance, which I advise you is not one of those things that we want to do away with the system. It just don't work. Recently, I did a podcast, and it's going to be out towards the end of February, around the 28th of February. We'll be listing a large number of those podcasts that we've been recording, which will showcase you people that have been through problems and the result, what's happened to them, and how they've sort of had to, get out of it. We'll also be talking to people that are in, of course, other groups and have been in there just so that they can show and say, well, this didn't work for me. And we'll show them this did work. This is what works. So that's what's cool about this podcast, is we're just going to be exposing, like, I know people are going around pointing fingers and arguing, but it'll be really nice to actually show people, well, this is what's actually working, and you can do it too, you know. It's not to sell courses, because the courses don't really make anything for me. I actually make money from services of actually providing people something of value. Yeah. So whether that be a trust asset protection that is actually a full-on trust, and as I said, the trust that somebody else got was just on its own a family trust of its own, just that. Now the problem with that is people think that that works for everyone. It doesn't. It doesn't work. You can't just have family trust on its own, and not everyone needs more than that. Some people need less than that. Some people just need a specific type of trust. Yes, private, yes, privately expressed, but not everyone needs the same thing. So where people are thinking, oh, well, I've bought that, now I can copy that and reprint that for everyone else like a template. I'm telling you now, I pray for you. I pray for you. If you're that foolish, I pray for you. Okay. I'm not even blaming the Judas goats. I pray for you, because ultimately what you're doing is all of your whole life you've earned to create these material goods in order to benefit your offspring. And unfortunately, you may end up in a situation where you followed somebody who has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And more than often than not, they're just reading. They don't know what they're actually talking, just because they got following and people are like, oh, you've given us, you've woken us up. Yes, they've shared some great stuff, but you need to really understand what it is that you're getting yourself from that. Okay, because to hear somebody crying on the phone for a good amount of time, probably time I've been on here, which has been a bit over the time I wanted to be on, but you know, telling me that they've pretty much got this trust, and I've just gone, well, it's missing this, this, and this, and just straight away it's got your full name on there. Why has it got your full name? What's that? So I just had to sort of straight away go, well, I don't think you've got what you think you've got there. And what you think you've got ultimately it can easily be pierced. You need to know that what's correct and what you're doing. So what I'd advise is, even if you're going to get DIY, there are people out there that I'd recommend get in touch. We point you in the right direction. You don't have to jump on our course. I always tell people what is out there. And what I do is even facilitate with my course a little pre-screening. Okay, so I don't just have anybody, because I'm not hungry for the money out there. I want to provide something that's long term for people. Okay, so I want you to walk away knowing you now know what to do on your own, unassisted, unaided, and without anything else. Okay, any other support. So it's very important to do that. All right. So as I said, I'll move on real quick, but it is late now. And I wanted to show these two things. Let's have a look if I can show you. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so what I was talking about to you earlier was I was just telling you about how we spent a lot of time putting together this entire presentation that I was going to show you, which essentially is of what we've been doing or what we've been planning on doing, and essentially why you're going to be in a better position to sort of follow along with some of the information that we are currently looking to share out there. Now, the information that we're looking to share is going to be based on contract law, equity, trust, constitutional law, and the courses are all based on those things. But because of what they actually help you with, whether it's utilities, whether it's council issues, whether it is all of the other things that people look for, especially when it comes to now a lot of people having issues with children, and the massive effect the childcare system is having on people. It's been so detrimental that we've helped a couple of people here and there, but ultimately it is the founding basis for why I even started doing it. So if you're someone who has had some of those things, you will find it a lot very useful, especially when it comes to even a lot of the highway traffic act, okay, and a lot of the issues people have on the highways is now eliminated, pretty much as of the I think it will be around the 10th of March. You'll be able to access something that will completely change the ball game into how you do things from here onwards, because we'll have the living proof that it works and that all is well. I've been waiting to do that for a long time. And when it comes to credit, as I said, you know, we don't really have anything if we did away with the entire system. So why not wait until we've got some way of actually, you know, doing away with that, because people don't know their consumer law. Consumer law is so strong. If you know it very well, there's some things that you can do, especially the Consumer Credit Act, you know, and as I said, when you know how to utilize that and how to mix that with political status and how to mix that with constitutional law and all the other things I've just mentioned, you're in a very powerful place, a very powerful place. And that's what I'm really looking forward to showing off. And I say showing off in a way that is a way of showcasing to others. Other groups can go and do it, it's fine, no big deal. But ultimately, you're going to need the real small detail that we have and elements to implement for you to be able to do it successfully, because it will not work with everything else without having done that. Okay. Now, I wish you all the best, because ultimately I'm going to show you this quick presentation. And as I do this presentation, I believe once I do this presentation, you guys will not be able to see me. Let's see how it works. Yeah, cool. So, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, okay, cool. So, as you can see, what we've been talking about over at iRise for the last few, well, before we actually began, red pill or blue pill. There's supposed to be music in the background, drums and everything. Red pill or blue pill. That's what this whole thing has been about. Okay, the red pill or the blue pill. Which one are you picking? You've probably heard with the whole Tate brothers and everything about the Matrix, and the Matrix is out to get you, and the Matrix is, you know, it does this, and you know, rah rah rah. But ultimately, we all have a choice. We live in the world that obviously has and seemingly is going to pot, isn't giving us any kind of true remedy, and is of course causing a lot of problems. And more than often than not, people are just working their way to the grave. And if they're not doing that, then they're having to strive to create a way for themselves. And even to do that, you really have to struggle for it's possible. All right, so here's what I would say. Try and see what hand is offering you the pill first. See what information that you're going to get from what you're going to take, and then take action. Otherwise, even though you're coming from a situation where you are having to obey the already dead entity government, yeah, you're now falling into the trap of other dead entities out there. So be careful when everyone's telling you how to truly break free of the matrix, because the only way you can do that is through using the pen. And when you do that, you're in a really strong position. And that's what I've been talking about. I'm going to be showcasing all of this a lot more. I believe on this coming Sunday, we've got another YouTube that's going to be coming on. and I'll pre-record that one. And you're going to learn everything you need to really get yourself from where you are, whether it's on the sofa, whether it's from on benefits, to in a situation where you are stronger financially, mentally, okay, and also in good health, actually, because we're sharing a few insights. There are a lot of people coming on to iRise who are going to go on and probably become ambassadors of what we're doing, because they've learned a lot, and they'll probably go on and teach. And of course, one thing we'll be offering is a license for those who want to teach exactly what we do here. So they don't have to drum up something new, but use what's worked effectively. So as I said, stop the fighting, stop the bitching, okay? Stop it. It's no good. The head and the heart need to operate in union as one for us to get true remedy in this world. And unfortunately, in this little movement that we've got going on, everyone is fighting, okay? Trying to be top dog, trying to say, I know it all, and calling other people, you know, names. Let's not say what kind of names, but either way, it's not good, okay? There are people out there who are in need of hope, and some people are already out there stealing it from them, providing massive camps of talks where they tell people things that they themselves are not even doing, and they don't care if they do or not. That's why they F and blind everywhere, because they ain't even got home. They live in a caravan, man. Of course they're going to send everything back because people are looking for them. Of course their credit is effed up, and the only way they're making money is through you. So be careful. And yeah, of course, we've got the academy. All right. So I talked about that, talked about the benefits of that. And as I said, it's not for everyone. The academy really is not for everyone. Okay. If you're somebody who just wants something right now, fix, it's not for you. Okay. And of course, we have the nation. What's good about the nation? We have actually used a lot of our notices and things like that for people who have already been trespassed against by certain agents. And of course, we've had to make certain calls to release them. De-arrests have been made, and certain other elements of things that we talk about here as abiding by true law and calling out those who are the outlaws because they're out of the jurisdiction of law. Yeah. And you're protected by that. You've got people who you can rely on. At the minute, yes, primarily it is myself who has a lot of the knowledge. But as the more people progress in knowing and knowledge, the more that there's going to be to showcase. All right. And I'm looking forward to that. Again, something else that will be on sale very soon. I'm going to take that off the screen. I don't want to showcase it too early. I was not meant to be there. But it is something that we will be helping people with, something that is a card that you can use to stop having those kind of violations against you. Tutorials in credit, as I talked about, and how, of course, you can truly break free from a system that is oppressive. And again, becoming a creditor, no longer being in a situation that you're oppressed by the banks or by any financial institution or anyone outside of you claiming that they're a creditor. Reclaim your birthright. That's what will help you do. Because once you do that, you won't have to bend over, you won't have to bow down, and you won't feel the pressures of the world on your back. Okay? And that's what we'll help to provide you with, so that you end up in a situation where you're jolly, when you're happy. And regardless of all the fear mongering going on, who are being perpetuated by leaders of groups telling you about the CBDs and all that, forget about all that right now. You have true control. You were given dominion over this earth. And once you accept that there is no separation between yourself and the Creator who made you, because when you go to sleep tonight, you already have plans for tomorrow. And the plans you have for tomorrow are not certain. Not everyone wakes up the next day. That's unfortunate, and that's true.
But once you accept that there is no difference between yourself and the creator, you will be able to do wondrous things. You will be able to create a life that is much more fortunate than wherever you are at right now. And I promise you, if that's something that you have ever had an issue with, test it yourself. I always talk about the importance of mental aptitude, but I'll talk about this book another time. As I said, it's a very good book, and it talks to you more about, understanding how to control the power of the mind. Okay. And so that when you do that, you end up in a place where you're unmatched in this world, and you don't have the issue of outside things controlling the fear in your mind. And once you can remove that, you've done a big job in helping free yourself. And that's the main thing. From one problem, you jump from one frying pan into the fire, because unfortunately you're running around with fear. And that's what I would like you to get rid of in order to be in a situation that you actually have more knowledge. Because you cannot grasp knowledge while you're still scared, fearful, anxious, and with a big heartbeat, but only when you're calm. The problem with identifying evil today is simple. There's too many evil people. So evil has simply become normalized. And in a society full of evil people, good and moral people actually appear insane. And I say that, although it's a quote, because that's what's been said of myself for many, many years, knowing all this stuff. And I say that because I've studied this stuff. Although I've actively studied in the last 3 years, I have been studying it by for the last 25 years. I may not look that old, ching ching, ching ching bola. But yeah, no, I am, half a century coming along soon. So, I'm well within my rights to say I have a large amount of accumulated knowledge to speak on the facts. Yeah. So get yourself to this status, forget about the evils out there, and start learning. And soon, yes, that will all be an audiobook. My marketing's coming back. So yeah, we will wrap it all up in a lovely little book that will, of course, be released next week. There'll be an audio version. It won't just be one, it's actually a series of books, because there's so much. There was so much in it, we couldn't do it as one. So there will be a series of books, and of course we expect it to be a really big seller because it actually has things of other people, not just my own. I've actually mentioned in this book people who I said I would send them a copy of what I've mentioned. So you are going to be in there, Rob, Odek, Richard Answer, of course, SPLS Pro. Hey, vital to me. They were for SPLS Pro in my very early days, and they still have a wealth of knowledge. In fact, they have some great resources. I recommend everyone should head there because they have the biggest library of everyone out there. And great knowledge. So there's so many people who are involved in this book coming together that I've learned from, that I would admire, and I would say, look up to them. But unfortunately, as I said, there is so many scoundrels too. So their stories are in there. But as I said, I've kept the book to part story and history as to how I've come to where I am, but I've kept a lot of it to be actual documents that you can use and implement and do. Those who are on the course, of course, will get a large discount. And of course, those who are using some of my services will, of course, get some of this at a lot cheaper rate. So there's a lot of courses. We've got 10 courses out with so many different things. And of course, what I love about the platform that we've created is it's a community. It's not on YouTube, it's not on Facebook, it is an actual community. It's going to have a community feel to it. You're going to all absolutely love it. We talk about status correction, as I said, things that are happening now. So it's not just those kind of things. And yeah, I've got some massive revelations to share with you that
I couldn't obviously share on this platform. I didn't want to run into Rumble too much, but you will see us on Rumble where we show the podcast, and probably this will end up on Rumble as well. But what I would say is, subscribe, like, follow, and find out more about what we're doing. Jump on us on the Telegram channel. And if you're excited to know and learn more, then definitely, I would say, keep your eyes peeled because we're only just about to get started. All right, have a great evening. Thanks so much for joining. I see that not one person has asked a question. I've had the smallest number of views, so it's all right. I know this is going to impact at least one of you out there, and it will, of course, mean a lot to you. So good luck. Have a great night's rest. Hopefully, you've got a great Friday ahead of you, and of course, a great weekend. I will be coming back live on Sunday, and I will notify on here in a much better way than I did today. All right. Rest up, rest easy, and we'll catch up soon. Take care. Lots of love and peace. Goodbye.